All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video and I'll go over the correct answers. So we're going to do remove, replace, reduce. So when you remove the 49, you're going to have x squared minus 28x plus 196. And then when you factor it and replace the 49, you're going to have 49x minus 14 times 49x minus 14. And then if you reduce these, you'll have 7x minus 2 times 7x minus 2, which you can also write as 7x minus 2 squared. For the math knowledge question, we have y plus 5 cubed. So that's going to be y plus 5 times y plus 5 times y plus 5. So you have to distribute completely. You don't just cube this term and cube that term. So I'm going to start off by distributing the first two. So that would give me y squared plus 10y plus 25, and then times y plus 5. From there, if you distribute, you're going to have y cubed plus 5y squared plus 10y squared plus 50y, and then plus 25y and plus 125. And if you combine your like terms, that's going to give you e. So that would be your answer for that one. We're looking at lesson 36 today. We're going to be looking at angles that are greater than 360, sums of trig functions, and then boat in the river problems. So hopefully you'll understand angles that are greater than 360, sums of trig functions, and boat in the river problems after this lesson. All right, so looking at angles that are greater than 360 degrees. We have already talked about how we can have a positive angle or a negative angle. If we go positive, we go up from the x-axis and we go counterclockwise. And then if we go negative, we're going to go down from the x-axis and we're going to go clockwise. We've talked about that in previous lessons. 50 degrees is the same thing as negative 310. And those are called coterminal angles because they have the same vector. Same thing with positive 220 and negative 140. They have the same vector, and so they are coterminal angles. What we haven't looked at is whenever we have an angle that's more than 360 or less than negative 360. If you have angles that differ by an integer multiple of 360, those are coterminal. So 50 degrees and 410 are coterminal because we went 50 degrees and then we went another circle around. And so we still have the same vector, but we just went an extra circle around our origin. And so that's how you could get another angle that's the same vector. Or you could have a negative number. And so on this one, we went down 50, so negative 50. And then we went around once and around a second time. And so 2 times 360 is the 720. And since we went down, it's negative 720 and negative 50. Negative 770 is coterminal with negative 50 degrees. There are a lot of, infinitely many technically, that are coterminal with 50 and negative 50, because all you have to do is keep adding 360 or subtracting 360 to find another one that would be coterminal. So we are going to be looking now at sums of trig functions. And so basically, we're just going to have to figure this one out, and then add them together. So let's start off by drawing cosine of 135. So 135 is going to put us into the second quadrant. So if that's 135, the rest of this has to be 45 degrees. And then a 45-degree triangle is 1, 1, and square root of 2. And so we're looking for the cosine here. So cosine of 135 is going to be the same thing as cosine of 45, which is 1 over square root of 2, or square root of 2 over 2. However, we have to think about all, whoops, that should be an A. All students take calculus. In the second quadrant, sine is the only one that is positive. So cosine in the second quadrant is negative. So the cosine of 135 is actually negative square root of 2 over 2. And then we have to do the same thing for tangent of 330. So 330 degrees is going to push you around into the fourth quadrant here. And so this is 330. The rest of this is going to be 30 degrees. And then this will be our square root of 3, our 1, and our 2. And the tangent of 30 degrees is 1 over square root of 3, which is the same thing as square root of 3 over 3, if you rationalize it. And then we have to look back at our all students take calculus. We're in the fourth quadrant. Only cosine is positive in this quadrant. So tangent has to be negative. So that's what you do there. Now the last thing we need to do is just combine these into one fraction. So the common denominator will be 6. And then you're going to have negative 3 square roots of 2. And then minus 2 square roots of 3. And so that would be your answer. So that's how you can evaluate these. This is why the unit circle is going to come in handy, because this took a lot longer than it should take you in another couple of weeks. Eventually, you should be able to look at this and go, oh, I know what that is. That's negative square root of 2 over 2. Oh, I know what that is. That's negative square root of 3 over 3. You won't have to draw them out. So right now, if you need to draw them out, that's okay, but you've got to get to where you know your unit circle so well that you don't have to draw them out. And so that's why you're having all those quizzes. Practice and learning them. Make note cards, do whatever, but you've got to learn them so that you don't have to keep drawing them out, because you don't have enough time on your test to do that. Okay, so let's look at another one. If y'all feel like you can do this one by yourself, go ahead and pause the video and try it, and then y'all can unpause it and I'll go over it for you. So for cosine of negative 60, we're going to go down because it's negative, and that's going to put us in the fourth quadrant. So this is our 60-degree angle, and then 1, square root of 3, and 2. Now cosine of 60 is 1/2, and in the fourth quadrant, that is positive because cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. Now for cosine of 210, this is 90, this is 180, and we go a little bit further. And that's going to put this at 30 degrees, because this is 180 plus another 30 gets you to the 210. So then I have my square root of 3, my 1, and my 2. And the cosine of a 30-degree angle is square root of 3 over 2. And then is it positive or negative? Well, it's in the third quadrant. Cosine is negative in the third quadrant. So it's negative square root of 3 over 2. And then if you combine them into one fraction, the denominator is 2 on both of them. So we have 1 minus square root of 3. And so that would be your answer for that one. Okay, we're going to look at one more. I want y'all to pause the video. If you think you can do this one by yourself, go for it. It's a little bit different because we've got bigger numbers. So if you're not ready to pause the video yet, then y'all pay attention, and then in a minute y'all can try it by yourself. Try it from the next step by yourself. So this number is over 360, and we don't know, we haven't dealt with ones that are over 360. So we're going to take 570, and we're going to subtract 360 degrees. And if you do that, that'll give you 210 degrees. So the cosine of 570 is the exact same thing as the cosine of 210 degrees. And then we're going to do the same thing for negative 765. Except we're not going to subtract, because then it's going to be getting further into the negatives. So we're going to add 360. And so if we add 360, that gets me to negative 405, which still doesn't help much because that's still not a number I know. So add 360 again, and that gets you to negative 45. And so that one you may be fine with using, because you can just go down. If you don't like using that, then just add 360 again. And that would give you to positive 315. So this is the same thing as the cosine of 315. or the cosine of negative 45 degrees. Those are the same, so either one of them is fine with me. So now, if you feel comfortable to stop the video and try by yourself and then unpause it, y'all go ahead and do that. So for cosine of 210, that's going to put us in the third quadrant. This is going to be a 30-degree angle. So we have square root of 3, 1, and 2. And so cosine is negative in the third quadrant, and then it's going to be square root of 3 over 2. And then we're also going to have cosine of 3 is 15 or negative 45. Either way, you're going to end up in the fourth quadrant with a 45-degree angle. So the cosine of that is going to be square root of 2 over 2 if you rationalize it. And cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant, so it's positive square root of 2 over 2. And then you just have to make it into one fraction. So the common denominator is 2. And then we have negative square root of 3 plus square root of 2. So that would be your answer there. Okay, so hopefully that helps you a little bit with your angles that are greater than 360 and how to add them together. Now we're going to look at the boat in the river problems. And when my brother took pre-calculus from the same book, not at Washita, at another school, he came home and said, I don't understand why these are called boat in the river problems, because they're always talking about airplanes. Airplanes work the same concept as the boat in the river problems. Basically, in water or up in air, you're going to have a current. You're going to have wind current or you're going to have water current. And so either way, you're still dealing with the same concept. If y'all have ever been in a lazy river and you get in a little tube, the water pushes you down and you just get in the tube and you're lazy and you just float through the water. Same thing in the air. If you were up in the air, your kite, if you let go of it, or a balloon, if you let go of it, it would start blowing off because of the current of the wind. And then if you're trying to go in the lazy river, whatever your speed is, so we're going to say the boat or the plane or whatever, the boat speed, you're going to add the water speed. And I'm going to use a water speed. I'm going to use a W because it's the same thing for wind, the current. You could use a C if you want. But if you were going downstream, this is going to be your rate. So that's going to be your downstream rate. Now, if you have ever gotten in a lazy river and you've accidentally passed up where you meant to get off, if you've ever tried to go back up the lazy river, it's really difficult because you've got to go against the current. And so your upstream rate is going to be your speed minus whatever the water speed is or the wind speed. So if you don't swim at least as fast as the water is flowing, then you're going to be still in the same spot. You have to swim more than the water speed to actually move forward. So this is what is going to be important for these. You need to make sure you understand this part. So on these boat in the river or plane in the air problems, you're going to start with a chart. And you're going to have your distance, your rate, and your time. And you're going to have upstream. And you're going to have downstream. Okay? And then you're going to fill in the information they give you and set up some equations. So her plane could fly at 5 times the speed of the wind. So whatever the plane speed is, it could go 5 times the wind speed. She flew 396 miles downwind, so 396, and she flew 132 upwind. So instead of using a B here, I'm going to use a P for plane. But the plane, when you're going upstream, it's the plane minus the wind speed. And our plane is 5W, so 5W minus W is actually 4W. And then when we're going downstream, the rate is the plane plus the wind speed. So 5W plus W is going to be 6W. Okay, so that's how you use that B plus W and B minus W. And then we have the time. It said it took her half an hour more to go downwind than it took her to go upwind. So if this is the time that it took her to go upwind, downwind was a half an hour more. And so that's how you set up your chart. From there, distance equals rate times time. So this first line, 132, equals 4W times T. And then down here, 396 equals 6W times T plus 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to distribute over here to get 396 equals 6WT plus 3W. And then I can come back over here and solve for WT. So if you do 132 divided by 4, you get 33 is what W times T equals. And then we can plug that in right here for WT. So 396 equals 6 times 33, and then plus 3W. So 396, 6 times 33 is 198. So 396 minus 198 is 198. And then if you divide by 3, W equals 66. So that is in miles per hour. And it asks, what is the speed of her plane and what was the speed of the wind? So this is the wind speed right here. And then if you take your plane, it's going to be 5 times the wind speed. So our plane speed is 330 miles per hour. And so that would be your answer for that one. So some of y'all may be familiar with those from Algebra 2. You may have forgotten about them, but that's how you work through your boat in the river problems. Your homework tonight, you do get to omit number 28, and you do have a trig quiz coming up when you take lesson 37. So that's the next lesson. You have 5 minutes. You're going to have 24 parts of your unit circle. If you mess up the signs, then the whole thing's wrong. So make sure that y'all study your unit circle. Once the 5 minutes is up, you're done. So don't try and draw all of them out, otherwise you're not going to be able to finish it. So study, 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 and work on your homework.